The ability to engage in physical activity is an integral component of the maintenance of health and independence with age. This capacity is typically developed through increased activity, either through manual labor or deliberate exercise. Current recommendations for physical activity vary by age group, with adolescents recommended to engage in at least 1 hour of moderate intensity physical activity daily and 3 days per week of muscle strengthening activity. Adults are recommended to engage in 2.5 to 5 hours of moderate level physical activity a week and at least 2 days per week of strength training. Dankel et al. Found that only 18.6% of individuals in the United States are meeting the guidelines for muscle strengthening. According to the most recent survey of Europeans, 65% of this population is inactive physically. The population at large is falling far short of current recommendations, with typical reasoning related to a lack of time, confidence, and motivation. Key points. The motivation to train or participate in physical activity is multifactorial, but highly related to the autonomy and enjoyment we gain from participation. The coaching language and environment can promote a supportive or thwarting environment that has repercussions on an athlete's long-term participation in physical activity. The achievement of basic psychological needs of autonomy, competence, and relatedness are integral to individuals' continued desire to participate in physical activity. There is a substantial amount of research on the role that motivation plays in physical activity. Much of this research is framed through the self-determination theory, SDT, as it examines the impact of motivation on emotional, cognitive, and behavioral components of exercise. The theory purports that motivation is comprised of intrinsic and extrinsic components. Intrinsic motivation leads people to act purely to satisfy their own curiosity or desire for mastery. Extrinsically motivated factors are all driven by social values and are often self-determined as values become integrated and internalized. The three main domains are feelings of relatedness, competence, and autonomy. Relatedness, competence, and autonomy comprise the basic psychological needs, BPN, of humans, with each contributing to the overall magnitude of self-determination to different degrees. Autonomy is the opportunity to feel in control of one's actions, and is promoted by providing opportunities for choice, acknowledging choice, avoiding judgment, and encouraging personal responsibility for actions. The role of these judgmental assessments will be further explored in the Why This Study Matters section. Competence is facilitated by an environment in which the optimal challenge is encountered and by feedback that promotes self-efficacy. Relatedness is promoted by environments that foster respect and mutual caring. Under this model, Valorant proposed the hierarchical model of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, HMIEM, to explain how global, contextual, and situational factors are responsible for an individual's behavior. Here, social factors affect different types of motivation depending on how BPNs are met. These social factors are often dichotomized into a bright side and a dark side, with the bright side being factors that facilitate adaptation towards intrinsic motivation, satisfaction, and the dark side being tenets that are related to psychologically controlling and frustration of needs, frustration. The HMIEM has demonstrated both cross-sectional and longitudinal evidential support. The model explains how perceived interpersonal behaviors from others will determine either satisfaction or frustration with BPN. Specific to exercise, settings where BPN is positive are related to autonomous motivation, participation because they value the activity. Where it is negative, it is associated with controlled motivation, participation either for an external reward or guilt. When it comes to discussions regarding training or rehabilitation, messages that seek to facilitate positive settings where individuals value the activity at hand, not settings where they feel they need to perform an exercise, or they will be in pain, or that they need a specific technique, or they will suffer an injury, seem to be more effective. Exercise enjoyment is a large influence on the intention to continue exercise. It drives feelings of autonomy where individuals demonstrate a higher intention of continuing to exercise in the future. Asgen has reported that enjoyment is, in fact, the most proximal determinant of whether an individual will continue exercise participation. This should likely be stating the obvious, But if clinicians are to expect individuals to continue training and participate in exercise, an environment that fosters independence, challenges individuals, and promotes autonomy will increase the likelihood of this transpiring. If framed through the entry point to begin exercise, it needs to be constructed in a manner that is not intimidating. Unfortunately, many of the paradigms for resistance training are predicated on narratives around the need for perfect form and movements causing injury.